Welcome to Men Moving Mountains, because the mountains weren't put there to stop you. They were put there to strengthen you. This is the space where faith meets grit, where we speak life into your purpose, confront the real battles men face, and equip you to climb higher, mentally, spiritually, and physically. No fluff, no filters, just truth, transformation, and the tools to rebuild your life from the inside out. Let's get to work.
Perfect. Back in the Men Moving Mountains studio. Today, I got a special guest for you. Mr. Gray's in the building. What we're going to chat about today, he's another married individual with kids. And so we're going to get into what it's like because he just made some career changes. He's out doing his entrepreneurial endeavors. But we're going to talk about what no one's talking about, right? The fact that who you show up for, ideally everybody is a man in your life, and the fact that people just don't get it sometimes. And so, Jonathan, we're going to jump into some of your story today. I appreciate you coming out, though, and making time to share a bit of your story.
Yeah, man. And, I thank you for having me. I think it's important for people to realize how similar a lot of us men are, and how even though we may be taking different journeys, there's a lot of similarities of what's going on. Right. And that's what I think is the most important piece of educating and just letting people know that we're all human. No one's perfect. And that's life.
But
right?
The biggest thing about guys, and we mentioned this when we just had Alex on the podcast, is guys, because they don't talk about it, that's why they're unaware, right? It's like guys know who guys are and what they do, but because they don't talk about it, guys don't talk about it, right? Whatever it is, they bottle it up. That's like I know business owners that aren't doing well right now, but they have to pretend that they are because they think that somehow they're in competition with all their, you know what I mean? It's this unspoken thing where they're just eroding from the inside out, or because we all grew up on Disney, you believe you're supposed to play this role of the prince and your job is to save everybody with the exception of yourself. And I got news for you. No one's coming to save you, right?
Yeah, dude, no one's coming to save you. And at the end of the day, the responsibilities that most men have, specifically if you have a family and you're the sole provider and you're really, today's harder to live than it ever has been, right?
Yeah.
On top of that, most guys don't ever want to ask for help. I'm the same, I hardly ever ask for help. Very, very rarely do I ask for help, but I could use help on a regular basis, right?
Yeah.
Where does that fall through?
Yeah, I would say if you need to learn how to change a starter on a zero turn, YouTube's a good idea. For most of the challenges you're going through as a man, I wouldn't say YouTube's a good idea. I mean, it might be now that we're trying to put out the content that we can't find other people wanting to put out, right? Pulling the mask away from it. But tell us a little bit about your backstory, because I know that you grew up somewhat similar to me, right? Like small town, rural Missouri, and what all that looked like to kind of get where you're at now and where you're headed.
Yeah, man. I mean, I come from nothing realistically. And what I mean by that is, I was a single kid for 10 years. And then, my mom, is a recovering, alcoholic now. She's been in remission. She's been in remission for over 22 years. So, congratulations to her. But for the first 10 years of my life was very inconsistent and stable. And probably like a lot of guys, I'm not the only one that has the same story, right? There's millions of people that have lived the same way, but my story is a little unique because I was raised by a single mother that was very young at a very young age. She had me when she was 20, right? So she was still trying to map out her life. I remember when I was 20, there's no freaking way I could have had a kid, right? And especially me, I was not a good kid whatsoever. Think of it as, I don't want to say a tyrant, but at the end of the day, I look back and I put my mom through hell on a lot of different situations.
Yeah, I can relate.
But, my story is unique because I come from nothing. My mom worked factory jobs, worked as a waitress most of our life, very, very low income. Heck, I started a lawn mowing business at 12 to support my brother and then my sister that came along a year later. And I was really, from 10 years old, I don't want to say a father figure, but we did not have a father figure in our life. None of us did. And what was important to me is that I actually had someone that I had a reason for, right? My brother was now I have a reason to want to be more and do more, right? And help
Yeah.
support my mom. So from 10 years old, I was watching my brother when he was 6 months old, a baby crawling, changes his diapers at 6 o'clock in the morning while she had to go to work on Saturday, right?
Yeah.
She didn't get home until 1 o'clock. Like, people use the term of like latchkey kid,
Yeah.
and that's really what my life started off at. We and lived in rundown houses, rundown apartments, subsidized housing. But really, that's what's made me the person I am today. If you look back at it, right? Um, got in a lot of trouble through high school because I felt like I was, I felt like I was a man, at 15. Did my own thing, and I look back at a lot of the things that I've done in my life, and was it perfect? No. Was it hard? 100%. Would I ever change it? No. And the reason being is because the life lessons that I've learned and the things that I've done has made me the person I am today. And we could definitely get a little bit more into that too. But yeah, unique story, but I don't think it's that unique because there's millions of men and people in general that was raised exactly that I was, right? So
Yeah, that's similar to mine, right? I mean, I grew up a latchkey kid, single mom household, get yourself on the bus. Mom was, again, I can't complain about it. We grew up in a trailer, eventually moved into a house, but similar to you, I felt like I was a man. I dropped out in the 9th grade, didn't get a GED till I was like 21 or 22, only because Rankin College, I told everybody I had it and no one ever asked. And then they go, well, you got to bring it in. And I go, oh, like that's a thing, right? But like, no, to your same point, I think a lot of kids grow up, fatherless households are a thing. And a lot of guys that have kids, it might not necessarily still be a father household, right? I always say, like, just to have a kid doesn't make you a dad, sort of thing. And I think it's an important thing. Did you have anybody when you were going to school that kind of influenced you at all from a male perspective? Because what's interesting is I hated school so bad, right? Like, all I did was skateboard. I hated it. And eventually, when I was messing up so bad, they created an alternative class, right? And it ended up being in a classroom above where they stored the buses, not even related to the school where all the problem kids went. Now, I never really got in trouble, but I also didn't care to do school. Now, what's interesting is 1 year, they finally moved it into the regular school, and Mr. Muzzy was the guy that taught it. Now, I knew Mr. Muzzy as like a 4th or a 5th grade teacher. I didn't have him, but he was a cool guy, younger teacher, got involved with kids, like he was a cool dude. And so we had him for 4 hours a day. Then we went and did the other classes, right? And we all passed that class. Now, what's funny is when I look back at it, I go, he's probably the only guy that was trying to give shots to the kids everybody else kind of gave up on. And the reason why I'm telling this story, because what's funny is, dude, it was about a year ago, I think, maybe 2 already. Junior could tell me, but where I had found him on LinkedIn. Because he ran a concrete company, scaled it while he was doing school, became a superintendent, bounced around. Now he owns a cannabis company and he's doing really well, right? So I looked him up on LinkedIn. I'm like, man, we ought to reconnect some point, right? So he reached out. Yeah, we probably ought to do that. Well, then out of the blue, I think it's like last year sometime, I'm down at the Ritz going to the cigar lounge. Literally, he's walking around the corner going into the Ritz Cigar Lounge, instantly recognized each other. He's having a meeting on one side. I'm having a meeting. We kind of intercept. I introduce him to my buddy, introduces me to his business partner. And I told him, I go, dude, out of nowhere, Hillsboro, Missouri, of you teaching this dropout kid, did we think that we would meet each other at the Ritz-Carlton cigar bar? You know what I mean? Like, how random is that? But was there anybody at all that you knew or maybe didn't know, TV, whatever, that you tried to look up to? Because as a man, we're always needing some sort of North Star. I mean, did you have one?
yeah, so I did. Luckily, I had a really, really great grandfather. My grandfather was really my father figure in my life. He still is, and very respectable guy. Marine. That's his background. Joined the Marine Corps when he was 19 years old. From the Marine Corps, he went to become a U.S. Marshal and served for the Marshal Service for 35 years, right? He actually retired from the Marshal Service right when I started playing football.
How old were you then?
So 7th grade was the first year I played football.
Okay.
So 13, I think, is around the time frame. He was really the person that entrenched in me that I could be better than what I was, and showcased to me that even though your life is tough, you can take that toughness and turn it around to be something great, right? And
Yeah.
that was the fuel I used for football. Football was my thing. I could smash people's heads, and I didn't get in trouble for it, right? Because, to be quite honest, I had a very, very bad anger problem when I was younger, punching walls, yelling at mom, doing the things that boys do, right? But outside of him too, I will say, I come from a small town, Jackson, Missouri. They are very much typically prior, very much, if who you get to do the things you want to do sports wise, right?
Yeah.
But I was very fortunate in a way where Nathan Norman was one of the best coaches I ever had. He was actually my 9th grade football coach. First year, he came back, and he's from Jackson, played in the NFL actually. He actually gave me my shot, and what really put me in a good spot to actually be a contributor and actually start, right? So I look at him as another figure that I had in my life, as well as Coach Gross. He was another football coach that knew the troubles that I was going through in high school, and always made sure to check up on me, always made sure that he was making sure I was doing the right things. And even when I got in trouble, because I got in trouble, he would come to me and say, "Hey, you screwed up, boy, but let's talk about it," right? It was never something that they were going to hold over my head. It was more of like, let's educate you on how you can improve better. So I think through my life, those are really the main figures that has kind of guided me to kind of where I am today, realistically.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's what Alex and I were talking about on the other podcast, where I always say, I don't really believe there's such thing as a self-made man. You know what I mean? Because when you look back on it, you're like, either this guy believed in me, gave me borrowed confidence, or this person took a shot on me. But there's always something changing the trajectory, which again is why it's so important for what we're trying to do with Men Moving Mountains, is the community aspect. Because had you not had somebody like that knew that you're probably raised by a single mom, you don't have an outlet. And this is like, I tell women all the time, like when their kids fight, I go, boys have to channel that they're going to have it anyway. And so they got to put it somewhere, because it's going to come out. That's the nature of what males do typically, right? That's awesome to hear that was a thing, right? Because that's got to be, again, when you look back, you can't connect the dots moving forward, but you look back, you're like, that's obviously a game changer to where you could have ended up had they held that over your head. You're not on the team. Just more fuel to be pissed at the world at that point.
Oh, 100%. I remember in 8th grade, I wanted to quit football 100% because the coaches were not attentive to me specifically. And maybe that's a selfish saying to myself, but selfish saying it. But I wanted to quit football 100% in 8th grade. My grandfather and, like I said, Nathan Norman basically convinced me not to. And I actually started as a sophomore on the varsity level, which is, I don't want to say unheard of, right? But for a prominent school like Jackson, very, very well known for the football landscape. You typically don't do that, right? You typically start either your junior or senior year, and then you kind of go from there. They actually gave me the keys to be able to pursue my dream, right? And before any sports, man, I was hanging out with the kids wearing Jinkos. I was the biker kid. I had a BMX Paralite bike, right? That I didn't buy. I actually won at a carnival. Funny story. At our home carnival, found $5 on the floor, on the ground. I go in, I get a ticket. My mom goes, "Well, where'd you find that money?" Because she didn't have it. And I go, "I found it on the ground. I want to try to put it in for this bike." And she told me not to. She goes, "You need to use that on some food because we don't have any money. You should probably get some food before we go home," because we didn't eat anything. I said, "No, I want to use it on this bike." Funny story. A week later, I get a call Saturday morning, and they're like, "Hey, it was the place that was auctioning it off. You're actually the winner of this bike." And I said, "No way." And I hung up on him, right? Went back my day. My mom comes out to me a little bit later. She's like, "I just got a call. You won the Paralite bike." And it was a big ordeal. They came to me. They took a picture for the paper. But I look back at those core memories and those core things. It's like, if that wouldn't have happened, where would I be? Where would I have gone? What would I have done? Probably would have ended up in jail for a lot longer than I actually had to, be in jail for, right? And wouldn't be where I am today for sure. But it's just funny how life has a way of kind of showcasing where you have been and kind of where you're at now, and how you can like look back on that.
Now, let me ask you something. Have you ever looked up trying to buy that bike that you had?
Yep, it's about $750 right now if you wanted to buy, because they don't make them anymore.
No, sure. Yeah, because everything's expensive from back in the day. But the reason I asked that is because I started, obviously, with me restoring my dad's Honda, right? It's like I started thinking back because, as you get older, you're having kids, you're doing all these things that we'll get into. You put you off, right? Because like I did auto body for a living. I love auto body. I don't do it anymore, obviously, right? But there's all these things I did, and I have that EG hatch. Well, my EG hatch hasn't had plates on it since '08. And the whole thing is you're like, I'll get to it, but you won't. It's like, why aren't you doing it? Not to get the bike because you're going to like go BMX anymore. It's just that symbolic thing that goes when you know what I mean? It's just like when you seen the movie Rad or whatever, you hear the song, you're there. It's like these things in life that keep you going. Oh yeah. You know what I mean? Like I remember that shit. Like that was a turning point. That's just like the relic on the wall of like, just to have it.
Well, yeah, it's core memories, right?
Yeah.
It brings you back to like, I don't want to say simpler life, but like it was, life now is complex. Someone said it to me the other day. It's like adulting sucks. Like don't be an adult as long as you can possibly be. Right. And that's a legitimate factor. And it's because of, I don't want to say the unseen stress that a lot of us carry. Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We're not going to tell you that we're having a bad day. Now we may, I may get snippy with you, or I may be like short with you, right?
Yeah.
But I'm never gonna say like I've had an absolutely horrible day and I need someone to talk to, right? It's like you will see other signs of that instead of relaying that message back. And that's I think the major problem. I've gone more and more towards being able to talk to somebody, having either a mentor or a sales coach, something that you can just relay what you're doing on a regular basis so you can convey that to people. And most people don't do that, right? Most people aren't going to talk with people on a regular basis to kind of just let it out. And that's what the most important piece is, letting it out.
Yeah. Well, that's a big part of the step, right? Because I always bring that up with like athletes like Jordan. It's like Jordan wasn't Jordan on his own. Jordan had a nutritionist. He had a trainer, Tim Grover. I've met him. I got his autograph, right? Like they have all these people helping them to play 5 minutes a night. Where you and I are playing 24 hours a day. We don't like, you know what I mean? You're in the game all the time. And I don't think people realize that, yes, it's good to have these people kind of keep you between the lanes, which is why I always like meeting with other business owners because they relate. Because when you think about it, you go, well, every boss I had was a dick. And then when you own your own company, now you're the dick because you go, oh, I had no idea. Because like when I was in the trades, I won't name what trade, but when I was in the trades, it's a known thing that at 2:30 you go to the bar. Yeah. Now I never really drank, but that's what everyone did. You could, if you're an apprentice, you don't ask why you go. And then you might see an owner show up that goes, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like I'm paying you $40 an hour to be somewhere else. And you go, yeah, but this is what we did. And you go, man, he's such an asshole. And then now you own a company, you go, everybody's bleeding me dry. Like you just go, it's funny.
That's so funny. Right out of high school, I actually worked for a drywall, hanging drywall and finishing drywall company, right? We did it all from hanging to painting to finishing. And dude, that was the culture. Get there at 9, start work at 10, go to lunch at 11:30, get back at 2, do a little bit of more work, and then you're off for the day, right? And you go, and I thought that was like, man, this is what real world work is, right? Yeah. And I was like, the perception of that was, mind-boggling to me.
No, it is. Yeah, people don't know that the United States is built by beer cans. They just have no idea. Now, the question is, so after the age, there's a percentage of men that with 6 or more close friends plummeted 55% in 1990, right? So this is a statistic that found in men that after the age of 35, that's when they reach peak loneliness. And so the reason I bring that up is I used to do a thing called Dinner for Titans where we'd invite men out, not as a networking thing, all different backgrounds. They break bread, you order your own thing. And by definition, all these things would be shared. And they go, oh, this is powerful. Yeah, because it's not me getting your business card and right. It's none of that. How do you see that? Like how old are you now? And would you say, given the fact that you're a dad and you're married and husband and you're an entrepreneur and you got to work, do you really believe that you have like that many close guy friends that you communicate with that often or no? Because this is a thing that I don't think guys want to share. Because like Austin and I, obviously we're tight. We work together all day. With the exception of Austin or maybe Sean, my buddy who's my chiropractor, we're very close. and a couple other buddies, like it's a thing you got to work on because it's just you don't make time for that anymore, right?
Yeah, you definitely don't. And I'm 38 now, right? I had my first kid at 28, so almost 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago, right? And I will say there's been a significant drop off from I've got a great group of guy friends, right? I've got about 15 guy friends I've been friends with since we were 10 years old, right? When we try to, on a regular basis, get together and do things. But, I can tell you that I haven't talked to probably 3 of them on the phone in a year and a half, right?
Yeah.
Heck, I got a buddy that lives 10 minutes away from me and I don't even see him once a month.
Yeah. Unless they have kids and they're like, let's get everybody together. But that's not the thing though.
Well, we all have kids. I got a buddy that's 3 kids. I've got 3 kids. We live 10 minutes away and it's still hard to even do anything with them, right? Because you got to look at it. You got a family. Your family's got a family. You've got other responsibilities.
Well, yeah, she's got her family. You got your family. Together, you have a family. Because when I hear Austin, I go, where'd you go for Thanksgiving and Christmas? They got to go 8 places. And I go, whew, or whatever it is, but that's life.
Yeah, no, it's life. And, I look back at it too. And it's like, I think men have a communication error, right? I oftentimes think I can communicate very well, especially when I'm working. I feel like I'm very well communicating what I'm trying to do, but maybe at home I'm not really good at communicating my feelings, what I need, what I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to accomplish. And I think that's where a lot of men lie is they want to speak, but when they do, they don't communicate in a way that's understandable from other people. So the message comes off wrong.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, I'm not going to say this again, right?
Don't you also think it's this, though, too, right? Because you're in a sales position. So am I.
Yep.
And I think when you have, and I'm not making the excuse, but when you have the amount of call volume you have, that when I'm off, dude, even now, I sleep my phone. That's why most people know, after 3 o'clock, you're not getting a hold of me because dude, I'm talked out because I'm like you. Me and you are a lot alike in a lot of ways. We're passionate. So if you want to bring something up, I got to go all in and I got to ask myself now, do I have the energy to even because I'm not going to have a half-ass conversation. I'm going to go. You asked me. Here's my process, right? And so I think that's a problem too, right? Because when you're in a position, the energy, the way that you and I sell, the emotion behind the sale is so exhausting that when it's at home and you want to create it that way, one, it's exhausting. It's already hard to do. And then secondly, if it didn't go well before, you're like, do I even bring it up or you don't? And then it's more stuff that gets bottled up.
Oh man, 100%. And I oftentimes, apologize to my wife here. I love you, babe, but, she was just talking to me last night and I was cooking or doing something. And she's like, you're not listening to me, are you? And I'm like, I'm sorry. I literally have 15 appointments today. All of them back to back to back. And then I spent 2.5 hours doing admin work afterwards as well. Right. At 9 o'clock at night until, 11. Yeah. And then I got up at 4:30 this morning to actually do a little bit more work because we have a team that's in the UK. So I wanted to make time for them too. Right.
Yeah.
But you're exactly correct when you're talking about not only the intensity, but the muscle, the brain focus and memory that you have to have those similar but different conversations all day long. And then to come home to, a 2-year-old daughter that's saying, daddy, 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 let's go outside. And coming home to a son that is now just interested in football and wants to go play football. And then your wife has things that she wants you to do as well. Dude, it just piles on and you love it, right? But there is a mental checkout that you have on a regular basis. And I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah. And so that's the thing that Austin and I talk about too, because there was a YouTube video I see not that long ago where they were interviewing these guys at a garage, and it was a Honda garage, the sickest Hondas you've ever seen, all JDM, very expensive. They restored a lot of these old hatchbacks. I'm talking to getting every nut and bolt re-zinced, real, right? And the guy goes, so how many customers do you have? And he goes, what do you mean? And he goes, customers. He goes, we don't have customers. And he goes, well, what is this garage for? He goes, 3 of my buddies and I like Hondas, so we bought this garage. These are our cars. We only work on them. We meet here every Wednesday. That's just what we do, right? And it's they decided, okay, because if you don't get it in, if you don't resharpen the axe, it's dull and you're swinging it. And that's the thing, I don't live with my girlfriend right now and her kids or whatever, right? And so like I bring up with Austin and I try to give him advice, but I'm not in his situation. But I tell him because, they live together. He just got engaged. They got kids. They got all these things. It's a little easier for me, even though it's not time-wise, because I don't have a lot of time because I have aging parents. I have one that lives with me, one that's now in a nursing home with Alzheimer's. But it's like, I go, no matter how you get it, even though I can't tell other people how to operate, you got to find that thing where you only have your one thing. I don't even know what it is, right? And Austin knows this recently. I started playing Forza on Xbox. Now, I didn't even own an Xbox, right? Because I quit playing PS2. I got Super Nintendo. That's my thing. I never play it, but I recollected it all. It's mine. I like that I have it. I got the original Magnavox TV for it. It's whatever. But I started playing it only because I like cars and I needed something not to think, because you're like me. I want to map it. The mind is churning 24. I don't sleep because of it, right? It's always that way. And I don't know how men that get it when you only live in the same house, but I figure you got to figure out what that one thing is. Maybe you don't do it all the time. Maybe it's the gun range. Maybe it's once a month, but you need a thing that's only yours and that's it. Yeah. And I don't know, whatever that is.
You do. And I'm horrible about this, right? I spend 99% of my time with my family. Besides, I have for the last, I'll say as consistent as possible. My time is in the mornings. I get up at 4:30 to 5 o'clock each morning. I do my thing in the morning and then I go to the gym. I start my day out with the hardest part of my day typically, right?
Sure.
That's what gets me going. And for instance, Thursday, I didn't get to go to the gym. We've had some sick kids, right? Priorities.
Yeah.
Didn't get to go to the gym because my wife was up all night with one of the sick kids. Completely understand. But I could tell that whole day I was dragging, right? Because I did not do my normal routine. I did not do what I know is important to me for my mental health, my clarity to have a bang out day, right? So all day long I was in a fog. All day long I was like, man, I'm off, right? And I could tell that. But you are correct. Men have to do something. They have to do something that they like. Maybe it's not the gym. Maybe it's something else. And it doesn't have to be every day. Like you said, once a week, once a month. But do something outside of your normal day-to-day that you actually love doing, because that will give you mental clarity and focus, and that'll make you appreciate your actual life more.
Dude, I love it. There's so many things you said right there. One of them is fitness, which I want to get into here in a minute, because it's always been a big part of my life, and we're going to start some fit boot camps with breakfast with the nonprofit here, because I believe that men need to understand that's where it all starts, physically, mentally, clarity. But what you said there, you have a routine. When it works, it works. But the most important thing you said is, I'm in charge of my routine, because men always want to provide and always want to take care of everybody else first. But the problem is you got no one to blame that if you ended up having a week in a row of not getting to the gym, right? You get bottled up frustration. You're snapping at clients. You're having a shit day at work. It's coming home. You're bringing it home. You're responsible for that. Things will come up where you can't do it, but at least you instantly noticed that, if I don't stay in between these rails, right? Because Alex that was in here, Alex went through AA. He's 17 years clean. He changed his whole life around, right? And he's ran, I think, 300 guys through that program because he knows it's important to stay between the lanes. Whether it's any other problem other than just staying mentally clear, you need to have some structure, right? And so that's the thing with Men Moving Mountains, where we created the pillars, faith, family, friends, fitness, finance, and fun, because I believe you can't have a good life without having those things. And the problem is, if you don't schedule them, they don't get checked and they never happen. And you wonder why you keep repeating the same life over and over and over again. And no one's going to tell you where to steer. You're the captain of the ship.
Man, you are so right. And this is one of my favorite sayings, right? What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Yep.
I use that as I don't want to say my North Star, but as my model, right? If I know I'm not in a good mental state, if I know, if I can feel myself kind of going outside of the lanes, like you just said, I look back and say, what is my routine? What have I done the last week that I haven't done normally, right? And it always goes back to consistency. Building the framework, building the consistency, having something in place. If you don't know what you're going to do, you don't know how to do it, and you're not going to be doing it anyways, right? And that's kind of how I've always positioned myself, especially since I've had kids. Prior to that, I used to go to the gym at 5, not, go out all the time. I wasn't as structured there, and I could tell my finances weren't as good. I'd call into work, and I've been in sales for over 16 years. So anybody that's been in sales knows that you don't make money unless you sell. And if you're not selling, then you're not making money and you can't provide, right? So,
Yeah. Man, no, I mean, I love that you said that though. I mean, it's like men need to understand why discipline is so important for setting up your life and your day, you know? And there's that other thing too that Dr. Benjamin Hardy said. He goes, if you don't look back at last year and you're not embarrassed of where you were, then you're not trying hard enough. And I explain that to Austin all the time, you know, because I met Austin 5 years ago, you know, and it's seen him, you know, get out of a lease and buy a car and get engaged and have all of that. Right. And I always tell him, I go, I might be insane. It may be good. I don't tell him that I'm right, but I go, at my age now, I'll be 45 this year. And I've done a lot. I mean, I went from dropping out to doing what I've done. And I don't say that like to impress anybody, but knowledge isn't power unless it's an action or handed down. And my biggest thing is like, if you ask me, I'm going to tell you everything I know about it, you know, and that's what it is. But I always tell them, because here's what the interesting, one of the catalysts in my life is when I finally got into the trades, construction trade. It's not what I wanted. I wanted auto body, but I seen the writing on the wall. Could have took over a shop. I go, this isn't going to work because body shops were closing. And I go, I don't, you know, it's very expensive to run. The EPA was cracking down all these things. So I took a job, high paying job only because it was a high paying job. And I go, well, I'm a high school dropout. So, okay. I took the narrative. Well, I'm willing to break my back. What's interesting is when I got into that trade, and thought no differently than any other, right? I'm going to work, making double time, doing all this stuff. And every time I'd have a conversation with anybody, they just go, what'd the Hall say? What'd the Hall say? And I realized, I go, this is weird, man. I go, it's like nobody had a thought of anything else other than what they were being told to do. And I'm not shitting on the trades. You need them. I love them. I'm a huge supporter of them. But I go, this is weird. And then I got laid off for 10 months, first layoff when you're guaranteed 5 years, but I got laid off for 2.5 out of the 5, not because I didn't work, because 08 happened, all these other things, right?
Yeah.
But I was sitting at home, and what came on the History Channel was The Men Who Built America, right? And it's the reenactment, okay? And dude, I bought that for people. I've watched, I can't tell you how many times. And I go, holy shit, dude. Like I had this epiphany. I instantly cut off a ton of friends only because we did the same shit. Everybody wanted to do the same shit forever. I go, okay, cut that off, right? And I left the trades. I built the fitness company anyways. And you see this trajectory. And I told, you know, Austin, I said, had I not had this catalyst or started reading, even though I didn't like reading, right? And started to look back, because you'll never see it going forward. It's when you look back and you go, had I not changed my mindset, I'd still be sweeping a body shop floor. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But my career trajectory, if you look at it on paper, makes no sense. Some of the clients we deal with makes no sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy. And the only thing I can say that is it's okay to be content with your life, but still want more, right? You're still striving. Because here's the thing I tell everybody. It's not about making $1 million. It's who can I help? If I bettered my life in every area, okay, now I can help other people better, right? So it's what you can do now because you're in a different position. You're not going to get rid of problems. You're just going to have different problems. But I said, had I not readed or shattered some of my own beliefs, because I use this one on every podcast, I'm going to bring it up again. Because like if you grew up with a dad who only liked Chevys, you would have never came home with a Mustang, which is ridiculous because you'll never know what it's like to drive one, or that you would have liked, similar with the religious beliefs. If you're brought up old school Catholic, most people never convert to anything else. It's a little insane. And what I mean by that is because your beliefs aren't yours. It's a identity. Yeah. You were brought up being told, well, if you don't get educated, break your back. That's not always true. If you're not this, it's that, right? And if you're not tall, you can't play basketball. None of that's true unless you believe it's true, but they're not your beliefs.
Yeah.
They're somebody else's. But if you live by them, you're going to wake up realizing you didn't live your life. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, 100%. You know, and I've never been one to conform, right? I absolutely hated school.
That's clear. As soon as, we're both covered in tattoos.
Yeah, right. You know, hated school. The only reason why I even focused on school was because football. Like I knew if I did not do good in school, I couldn't play football, and that was like absolutely love football, right? As well as like school and the regular workforce is designed to put you in in what they feel like is your position. You know, you mentioned construction, right? You go in, you have your daily tasks. Your boss tells you this is what you're going to do today. You go do it, and then you leave, right? I was never one that just wanted to go do that. I was one to go, okay, I'll do that. I'll do that really quick, and I did it fast. And I'd go to him and be like, all right, now teach me something else.
Right.
You know, I look at myself as a jack of all trades, master of none. And my grandfather taught me that, right? everything you learn is a tool you put in your toolbox.
Right.
Even if you don't use it on a regular basis, right? You still have that tool because you learned it, right? So I'm very proponent of, if you're not failing, you're not doing hard enough. If you're not learning or wanting to learn more, then you're in a stale state, right? You're going to be at the same spot you are. I went to jail for 140 days when I was 18. I spent my 19th birthday in jail. I spent my 18th Christmas in jail. Hated reading. I actually picked up the Bible when I was in jail and started reading the Bible when I was in there. And like, there was many nights that I was crying to myself because of the words and the power of it. And I'm not one that goes to church. I believe in God. I know he's done things in my life that I cannot explain because I should not be here right now.
Sure.
Especially for the trajectory. Like, my mom is a single mom. She's a waitress. I worked in the construction field. Same thing as you. 06. I went from 06 to about 2010, right? It dropped off. The housing market went dead. I was serving tables at a local bar and grill, like not even knowing what I'm doing with my life. Like what am I doing here? And very bad depression, didn't know what was going on. And luckily I had some buddies that worked in the car business and they're like, man, you would kill it here. And the car, I don't know, you may not know the car business.
No, I know it well. I was in a lot of dealerships, so was Austin. I know it very well.
So like you start off making nothing, bro. Like you make like $1,000 a month was my draw, and I had to pay that back.
Right. Yeah.
And I was making well more than that serving tables, but I know that was not sustainable, right?
Yeah.
I was driving a 92 Integra with slam down. I had a flat tire in the parking lot that I couldn't pay for because I didn't have the money. It was, December when I decided to change jobs and go to this
cars only break at that time.
Well, exactly, right? So, but if I didn't have done that, I would be in the same spot I was, right? If I didn't go for that risk, if I didn't take that opportunity that's in front of you, even though you may not see the value right now, take it because you'll learn more from it. And maybe it's a risk that failed. I took plenty of risks that failed, right?
Yeah. The only way you have to fail forward. If you're scared of failure, then you can't. That's the thing. So once you accept, okay, to be successful, I have to fail as many times and as quick as I can. And then you just go.
100%.
Yeah. But I love what you said about the tools though, because you're right. Because Steve Jobs said that. He goes, you can't connect the dots moving forward, only looking back. Because when I got into insurance, I go, what the hell does this have to do with the fact that I'm an ICAR certified welder, construction, I did mortgage lending. I mean, I've done it all. Well, now when I look at protecting people's personal assets, I know everything about everything. Right. And it kind of comes full circle. But here's more important of what you're saying is, yes, you need to get a collection of tools because it's easier to do things in life when you have more tools, but it's also not being scared to use them because there's this analogy that the real Brad Lee, who's a guy that I follow and have for a long time and taken his stuff or whatever, he said, it was a story he told or whatever. And he goes, yeah, I hear my neighbor outside just banging on something. He goes, I go outside and he's beating a birdhouse with a spoon. And he goes, hey man, what are you doing or whatever? And he goes, I'm building a birdhouse. He goes, but you're holding a spoon. And he goes, yeah, I'm trying to build a birdhouse. He goes, but you have a shed over here full of tools. He goes, yeah, I know. And he goes, I might need those one day. The point is, like, that's the thing with men is like, we all know way more than we expect. And it's like, dude, you just go, man. Because here's the thing that I can tell people. And again, not in an impressive way. I didn't go to formal school, formal degree, any of it. None of my life looked formal at all. I stunt rode motorcycles and traveled in my mid-20s. Like I, was doing wheelies and running from the police for like a living and selling DVD. Like, you know what I mean? Like the thing is, my point is if you want it, you'll get it, right? But the thing that he's talking about too, you can't be scared to move. Because when I was a laid off sprinkler fitter, I mowed lawns with a retired neighbor of mine for $10 an hour. And my buddies that were laid off too, they go, dude, we make 45. I go, but dude, we're making nothing right now. Okay. To be too proud to do, like you said, okay, this didn't happen. I'm going over here. The thing is, you're not going to be able to move like in a linear fashion. There's no horizontal, like parallel move. It's not like, well, I'm making 60 now, so I got to make 61 to move. No, it might be 58 with the guy that's going to teach you to make 105. Yeah. You got to understand that not everything is just going to be a direct step up to the top. But if you're not willing to invest in what it can be, then you're going to be stuck.
Yeah. And the comforted part that you mentioned, like, right, you know, you got to graduate high school, you got to go to college, and you got to, you know, you got to know what you want to do with your life at 18. And like, let's be honest, no one knows what they're going to do with their life at 18. Heck, I didn't know what I was going to do in my life when I was 28. And that's when I had my first kid, right? Like, let's just be honest. But at the end of the day, I come from a small town. Most people stay in that small town. I'm not saying anything bad about it, but a lot of the guys I went to high school with are doing some of the same, still doing the same thing that they did out of high school. And that's fine. That's great. They have a great life. But I knew that wasn't going to be for me. Like, I knew for a fact that at a very young age, I had in my head that I was going to be successful. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why. I don't know who put that in my head. But ever since I can remember, I was very poor. Couldn't buy shoes, couldn't buy clothes. Like, I knew I wasn't going to live that way, right?
Yeah.
Like, I knew eventually that I was going to be able to come out of this, and my life was going to be different when I got older, or when, you know, when that epiphany came. And, you know, I look back and I wonder, like, am I doing right by my kids, right? And the reason why I'm saying that is because oftentimes when you grow up without anything, and you know, I'm a big Jordan fan. I've got over 200 Jordans right now.
I was getting ready to get to the shoes in a minute, but go ahead.
Yeah. So, like, you know, that's probably part of my childhood trauma.
Same here, dude. Yeah. Oh, believe me.
So it's like, you know, it's, I look at my kids and I give them, I don't want to say everything, but I give them a lot.
Yeah.
Cause I just remember when I was 15 and 16, and my grandpa bought my first 67 Chevy from my great grandfather. He bought that brand new. We bought it for $500. I had to work for that $500, right? Like, you know, at $5 an hour or whatever the case may be to get that. You know, I remember my grandfather giving me that opportunity that if I would have had that, I wouldn't have had a car. I wouldn't be able to work. I wouldn't be able to do. And oftentimes, you know, I look back at my kids and I'm like, am I doing too much for them? I want them to be like me when they grow up. I want them to have the same motivation, but I also remember how tough it was, right? I remember, like, you know, there was nights that, you know, you're crying and you're like, am I going to be able to eat tomorrow? Or, you know, like I said, my mom was a recovering alcoholic. She wasn't even home, right? I'm home alone at, you know, 8 years old. And that's just how life is. And I look back and it's like, I know my kids can't grow up like that, but I also got to instill some inspiration in them as well, and set, like you said, the guardrails for them too, but in a better situation, right?
Yeah, because I say that because, like, when you ever grew up around anybody that had money or parents that had money, and you always were enamored, you know, because your family didn't, and then you see how those kids grow up now, and you can't reverse that, right? The beauty of it for somebody like you and me is you know what the worst case scenario can be, and now you don't fear it, so you can move ahead. Where people that have always had it handed to them fear almost anything outside of their control because they've really never been in control of anything, you know. And it's one of those things. What do you think, if you had to place a moment on it, what's the hardest mountain you think you've ever had to face? And the reason why I want to talk about it is because a lot of men, say this all the time. I go, there's a million things that happen in everybody's lives where you go, this thing's going to take me out, whether it's a relationship, somebody passing away, whatever. I'm not going to get over it. And if you're still here listening to it, you're proof that you've won 100% of the time, right? It's to put it in perspective that it sucks right now, you know. And I always say there's no failure, only feedback. But if you had to place a moment, and I'm sure there's many, but what would you say, you know, the biggest mountain you've had to move out of your way to this point?
There's been a lot, you know. There's several things that you can look back on and be like, man, how did I prevail from that, right? How was I successful from that? You know, I've had some loss in my life, unfortunately. I lost one of my best friends. He joined the military, went over to Iraq, and unfortunately he, you know, lost his life serving our country. You know, R.I.P. My buddy Jeremy Shank. I've actually got tattooed right here, and I've got the Warriors cross right here for him. But 18, he passed away. That was a very pivotal moment in my life because I same direction. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was drinking every day. I was, you know, smoking weed, doing the things you're not supposed to do, like robbing people, like doing the bad stuff. That's why I spent 140 days in jail, at the end of that year. That was a very pivotal moment in me because I lost a very good friend of mine. I was in jail for 140 days. And I think that really kind of solidified me a mountain that was very, very tough and hard to climb. But just recently, I had to do another one. One of my best friends since I was 4 years old passed away, unfortunately. And he was actually a good friend of mine and a good friend of my buddy that passed away when we were 18. I've got pictures of us hanging out and doing some great stuff. And, he had a challenge with addiction. And the last 2 years, I haven't been as present in his life, unfortunately. And, that hit home with me when I found out what happened. And so that was a tough one, to be quite honest. But I look at that now, and typically I wouldn't express emotion, or I wouldn't express the gratitude, or wouldn't express like the love I had for these gentlemen and these my brothers, right? But these are mountains that you climb regularly. And I mean, this was just 30 days ago, right?
Yeah.
And so I just want people to know that you're going to have mountains that you're going to have to always climb, but there's always going to be a valley out behind it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you got to really look at.
I agree. Yeah. Cause I always say once you get to the top of one mountain, you're just seeing all the other ones in front of that. Right. But it's important to note, one of the things I try to instill in men before we wrap this up is what he's talking about, like friends, family. You think you have time. Cause I think one of the most bullshit kind of comforting things I was told a bunch of times is life's a marathon, not a sprint. Okay. Well, tell that to Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
Right? Tell it to, like, you know what I mean? We all think we have time, but the thing is you don't. And the problem is when you're only planning of the future, or you're only living fear in the past, there is no fucking moment at all. That's what people find out when you're on your deathbed, which could be for any one of us a diagnosis where you go, man, I would have done everything differently. Or what? And the thing is, you kind of have to, I'm a big into stoicism. I have memento mori tattooed on me, right? Which means remember you're going to die soon, because to keep thinking we're programmed. The weird thing about humans is we're programmed to be like, I'll be great tomorrow, right? And tomorrow. Or to your point too, you didn't stay in touch, but it's not always your fault, right? There's double-sided communication with friends. But the thing is, you got to quit thinking that you have time, number one, and two, check on people, especially people that you think are doing well. Because I got news for you, if we learn anything with like Chester Bennington or anyone else, Robin Williams, just because people are happy or having fun because what the problem is, men always check in on anybody else. And because you love that friend that checks in on you, no one's checking in on him. I had lunch with a buddy of mine not that long ago who runs a mastermind. And what was funny is a buddy and him, they start calling each other now because he found out like, yeah, I'm running this thing. I'm pouring in all these people. So people don't assume to say, hey man, hey Jim, how you doing?
Right.
And it's wild.
Yeah, no, and I'll speak to my best friend, Brandon Sides. I love you, brother. He was doing some great work, man. He was working for Recover, was almost 2 years sober. But I think he faced the same things, and I don't know for a fact, right? I can't say, but when you pour everything you have to somebody else, who is giving that back to you?
Right.
And if you're not getting that back, it's going to put you in a place where when you're around temptation, you're going to go back to that because no one's telling you no. No one's telling you, hey, dude, that's not the right path to go, man. You know that. Don't do that, right?
Yeah.
So, I look back and it's like, could I have done more? Of course, anybody could do more, but I'm not looking back at the past to be like, faulting my own. I'm looking back and like, okay, how can I improve moving forward?
Yeah.
How can I look at my friends now that are posting on Facebook, that loving their life and doing things, but most like on the back end that social media is what it is, and it's not, you're not seeing the full picture of it, right? So I look at that as a learning curve to kind of be like, okay, I need to be checking on my people more. I need to be checking on the people that look like they're good more, right? And even myself, I need to check on myself more.
You're not wrong, dude, because what you just said, you can't pour out your whole glass, because what happens when you do that, or you go back to an addiction, it's because, your shadow that's been following you here then becomes the only thing that you knew, right? And so similarly to like an iPhone, it's outputting all day. It's only charged when it's plugged in. So if no one's providing a charge for you, you got to be careful on how much battery you're willing to spend, because at the end of the day, you got to protect some of your own battery. You got to protect your own juice because you can't be all things to all people. And if things happen in life, you can't change it. Life's life. You know what I mean? Like babies die, things happen. It's all unfortunate. But the one thing you can do, like to your point, is learn from it, right? Like what can I take that if I was in that situation, I want to do differently? And that's how everybody gets better. But I'll tell you what, man, I mean, everybody can get better if they just speak though. Do you know what I mean?
Speaking is a big thing. And I've never been one to talk about stuff until recently, really, probably the last 3 to 4 years. Because I caught myself like just being in this perpetual motion of like anger. Why, why am I not more successful? Why am I this? Like the anger aspect is really was bothering me. So, now what I try to focus on is focus on the things you can control.
Yeah, right.
Be consistent, showing up, having a process, having a framework. Focus on the things you can control. Everything else is noise. And I used to be like in the car business, someone would show up, act like I was going to be like, I'm going to sell this guy. And then we'd leave and they go buy a Honda across the street. I worked at a Hyundai dealership, right? Who wanted to buy a Hyundai in 2011? Like, come on. They wanted to buy a Honda. I'd be cussing. I'd be mad. I'd be banging tables. And, an older mentor at the time been selling cars for, I think, 45 years, right? He was like, John, I'm going to tell you, you're going to have a short life. I was like, what do you mean? It's like, you can't focus on the things you can't control. And I didn't know what he meant by that at that time. I was like, get out of here, man. Like, you've been doing this long enough. You could say that. You got a, house.
Right.
I need to make money right now, right? But now that I look back on him and look back on what he said, it's like, that's like my philosophy. That's my focus, right? Control, focus on the things you control. Everything else is noise. And you'll be successful.
Yeah, they call that signal. Focus on the signal, the rest is noise. And I say that you can make a list too, right? So write down everything you can control, throw the list away because you can control it. Write down everything you can't control, throw that list away because you can't control it. So there's really no reason, right? Life only fights you when you actually think you're in control of the things you're not, right? Yeah. Life is going to play out, and because it's not playing out to your narrative, that's where all the struggle is in between. It's like I was telling Junior one day, I'm a huge fan of Dr. Wayne Dyer, and he used to say, he always says, he goes, oh, you're thinking, he goes, there's no such thing as stress, only stressful thoughts. And people go, you can't say that. And he goes, great, then go out and bring me a 5-gallon bucket full of stress. And he goes, you can't, right? It doesn't exist. It's just you thinking in that manner, which again, communicating and hanging out with other men and iron sharpens iron allows you to challenge those things and say, oh, it's an alternative way to think. Because if you're left to your own devices, you're going to come up with, you're going to go down rabbit holes. Because I talked to a business owner this morning who was going down a rabbit hole because of ChatGPT. And I said, you got to know that most of the people are asking what you're asking. So it's going to give you a fear-based answer. I go, most people aren't asking, right? The input, the output, right? Yeah. So it's like, I go, stop. You know what I mean? Like, stop. And the other thing is, we don't need all the answers. Because I have a feeling too, if we had all the answers or when we're going to pass away, you couldn't deal with it either. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, but that's what I appreciate about you, dude. I knew at the moment we met, like we were a very similar cat. And I appreciate you putting out, Men Moving Mountains content. But that's why I wanted to get you on here. And I'd love to have you back similar other times, to express to men, like, it's really not that complex, man. Like, open up a little bit, chill out. Quit trying to solve all the problems in one day. It's not going to happen. But I think one of the clear things is if you're not getting understood at home, and that's fine. Wayne Dyer used to say that your family or your friends is God's way of apologizing for your family. Maybe that's not the place you need to be understood. Right. That's fine, right? Like I can't, my girl could explain to me what it feels like to have a baby, and I can't conceptualize that. We're never going to be able to have, you get what I'm saying? So like, Stop. Some things you need to know, some things you don't, some things you're in control, some things you don't, man. But I appreciate you coming out this morning and sharing a bit of your story because I know it's going to help a lot of guys. A lot of things you were bringing up I didn't understand. And I think you even kind of telling a bit of your story today, you're starting to think of the little mile markers, and talking about, the guy that helped you with the football and what your grandpa meant to you and then what the guy said at the dealership. And I think if anybody starts looking at their own story and connecting those dots, you go, oh, that's how I got here. And it's these little small pieces that you take with you. And then when you think of them again, it reignites you because you go, oh yeah, no, I remember. I should quit shitting my pants.
Yeah. You look back and it's like, I've been in this spot before. Like, you'll get through it.
Right.
You have prevalence, right? You will get through it. There's going to be tough times. There's going to be things that you're not going to like. There's going to be loss. But but remember what you've been through already and what you got through, and that will help you focus on where you're going to go eventually. Right?
Yeah, and the other thing is find a good inner circle, right? Because a lot of us got where we're at by what's called borrowed confidence. You know what I mean? Like when you didn't believe you could do it, but because somebody else did, you go, oh shit, yeah, I can do that. And then you go, oh, it's not that bad. And it's like, sometimes that's what it needs to be. Sometimes you might not be your number one cheerleader. Somebody else has to be. But in that same vein, be that for somebody else. Yes. You know what I mean? Like when I went through and all my messy shit. That's why when Austin started working here, I go, dude, I'm going to teach this kid everything I know. But I tell him all the time, might be right, might be insane. You'll figure it out. But I think more of it's probably right than not. But you don't know. But I go, that's the beauty of it though. Like, I don't want him to make the mistakes I made. I'd like him to see what this is and what it's not so that he has more data to make a better decision that I didn't have at the time when you're blindsided, man. But like I said, dude, I appreciate you coming out. Love to get you back on here. But like I said, I appreciate you telling your story.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me, man, because I think what you're doing is super important. And, I'm here to support you guys 100%. You know that. And we just got to get more men to be able to speak, to talk, to be together and make that normal.
Right. Like it was when we were in our 20s. Exactly. It was just what you did. Right. You hung out with your boys and you had fun and you had interest. Right. And that's a topic for another day because nobody has hobbies anymore. It's weird. Nobody just does anything just to do it, whether you're good at it or not. And so again, it's bringing the male community back together and for them to start doing, again, it's like, why do you have the car with 08 plates? It's like, are you going to enjoy that lowered Civic when you're in your 70s? No. So like maybe get it done now or for no other reason, or maybe it doesn't get done, but the fun of just even buying the parts lights you up, then do that thing. Yep. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you, man. Like I said, we got to get you back out here. And, Austin and I are getting ready to launch Uplift University here real soon, which is going to be the platform for guys to take classes online. And then we're going to start raising money for a trailer so that we can fill it full of the Fit Body Bootcamp stuff because we're going to try to kick those off. We're actually going to try to ideally do them right out here in the field, right by the office. Yeah, you know what I mean? To get men out here in the morning for an hour and a half, do a workout, eat breakfast, break bread, talk about a few problems and move on. And then you're back home before your kids get up and everybody can't say they can't do it.
Yeah, man. No, I believe in that, man. And I'm 100% on board and support you guys. What you guys are doing is super important. And any way that I can help relay the message, I'm here for you guys. So yeah, keep up the great work.
Dude, I appreciate it. Everybody knows where to find us. menmovingmountains.org. If you guys find us on there, here's the thing. We're on TikTok, obviously, where we got a lot of men pouring into the comment section, which I think you'll find value and solace in that. But the main thing is on YouTube, if you're wanting the longer form content instead of it broken up, YouTube's a good place because you'll start getting used to maybe a feel about what the university classes are going to be looking like. And then obviously on Apple and Spotify and everywhere else you can find podcasts, we're on there now. So if you just want to listen to it, it's there. If you want your shorts, it's there. If you want your long form, it's all there on those platforms. But again, reminder, menmovingmountains.org is a 501c3. So we're a nonprofit. The way that we're brought to light is by other people donating money to believe to get out this message. It's not a for-profit business. So until next time, we'll see you here.
Yeah, man. So, you can find me, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I don't post much on Facebook. But LinkedIn and Instagram, that's where you can kind of find me as well. But I'm with Chris. I'm with Austin. I'm with these guys here. You will see me on Men Moving Mountains, especially, coming up. But if you need anything, reach out to me, whether it's Facebook or whether it's LinkedIn, you can find me on both of those. And it's Jonathan Gray.
If today moved something in you, it's time to move something with you. Visit menmovingmountains.org and sign up for Uplift Men University, our online platform with powerful classes, brotherhood circles, and exclusive tools to help you rise. This is more than a podcast. This is a movement. Don't just survive. Uplift, endure, conquer. This is Men Moving Mountains.